quarterback, because I know exactly what the
Right
counts
at the
are.
play clock, perfect timing. Good evening, and welcome to the Town of Rockland Select Board meeting for Tuesday, January 20th, 2026. Please stand and join me for the pledge of allegiance. Lieutenant McDonald, can you stop the pledge?
Yes, sir.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be advised that this open meeting is being broadcast live and recorded for playback by WRPS at youtube.com/WRPS-Rockland. Please go to WRPSRockland.com for further information. First on the agenda, community announcements. Doug.
Thanks, Mike. So this is a particularly difficult announcement. We did put it on the agenda so people could see that we did want to honor the life of Liza Landy, our town clerk, who recently passed away unexpectedly. There's two brief things I'd like to read. The first is a announcement that Town Hall put out on social media and other platforms. I'd like to start with that. Our community is deeply saddened by the unexpected passing of Town Clerk Liza Landy. Liza served the community with unwavering dedication, integrity, and care. In a role that demands precision, patience, and strong customer service, she brought not only professionalism, but a lightness that made even the busiest days feel manageable. Whether a resident walked in with a complicated question or a colleague stopped by seeking guidance, she welcomed everyone with the same steady warmth and humility. Her quiet leadership and generosity shaped the experience of countless community members, and as we reflect on her years of service, we honor not only the essential work she carried out, but the grace, humor, and humanity she brought to it. Her presence made our community better, and her absence will be deeply felt. We extend our heartfelt condolences to her family and friends as we remember her life and legacy. And then I'd also like to read her obituary that her family published. Liza Landy, age 55, of Rockland, passed away peacefully on Wednesday, January 7th, leaving behind a legacy of love and laughter to her family. Liza was a proud mother of her two children, Christopher Landy and Allison Landy, as well as a devoted wife to her husband, Daniel Landy. Liza grew up in Pembroke with her 7 siblings: Sandra Newcomb, Doreen Newcomb, Jeff Blades, Roberta Sawtell, Tommy Blades, late Tammy Blades, and Everett Blades, as well as loving sister to the late Marilyn Hamilton, Charles Blades, late Herbert Blades Jr., and late James Blades. She was the youngest daughter of the late Herbert Blades and late Janice Blades. She was also a loving aunt to many nieces and nephews. Liza later settled down in Rockland with her husband, where she was loved by many in town, as she previously worked for the Rockland Council on Aging as their van driver and as a town clerk at Rockland Town Hall. She was known for her contagious laugh and always being able to make everyone smile. She loved spending time with her family and had a huge love for dogs, and she would much prefer to spend time with dogs rather than their owners. Service dates will be shared soon. And then lastly, just for me personally, I just wrote down a couple of very brief notes. You know, my experience with Liza over the whole time that I've been working here in Town Hall in Rockland, I found her to be reliable, intelligent, hardworking, firm when needed, always professional, and most importantly, she was kind. And she's going to be truly missed by everyone here at Town Hall. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Members of the board, Tiffany?
When I first heard about Liza's loss, well, first of all, I'd like to read this. We are heartbroken by the loss of Liza Landy. She brought fierce determination, strength, and a wonderful sense of humor to Town Hall every day. She worked tirelessly and cared deeply about her job, her community, and the people around her. I admired her greatly and truly enjoyed her company. My heart is with her family and with all of us who had the privilege of calling her a colleague, a friend, and a steady presence in our town. Because of who she was, that is so many of us. I also, my heart goes out to Town Hall and to everyone who has continued to come to work while in the midst of grieving, because this is very hard. And we all lost somebody very special to us, and Liza's gone way too soon. But what an exceptional woman, and I feel very fortunate to have been able to have known her.
Thank you.
And to have called her a friend.
Steve?
Yeah, thank you. That was nice. Liza led the clerk's office with integrity, dignity, and respect for every resident she served. She was the embodiment of what it means to be a public servant. Her passing leaves a profound void in our community, in Town Hall, and in our friends' and families' hearts. I'm grateful for her years of dedication to the town of Rockland, and I'll miss her dearly.
Lori?
Yeah, Liza Landy was what in Yiddish is called a mensch. A do-gooder with a pure heart, a sense of decency, and one quick to serve others. And in her dedication to service, her superpower was embracing her imperfection and humility. When I'd ask Liza a question pertaining to the business of the clerk's office, her humble answer was often, I'm not sure, but I'll find out. And she did every single time. I felt like we were on a learning curve together, and that Liza's kindness, humanity, and curiosity fueled her to reach her highest human potential. Mr. Rogers of television fame said to always look for the helpers. Liza was certainly a helper, with the added bonus of always having a smile and a wicked sharp sense of humor. What I adored most about Liza was a tidbit not known by many. One of her good friends in high school was a mutual friend of ours, Michelle Kish, who was the lead guitarist of an all-girl 80s punk band called the Killer Abs. Michelle currently jams with the Why Nots, which is one of the bands that played in the garage at our Christmas party last month. Stalwart qualities of the punk scene are fiercely being true to oneself, championing individual freedom, and valuing genuine, unfiltered emotion and expression over polished perfection. In this sense, especially in her quiet determination, the white noise that propped up Liza's being was punk as hell. In grieving this monumental loss to our community, I'd like to offer a fitting reading, which is the poem Meditations Before Kaddish, which goes like this. When I die, give what's left of me away to children and old men that wait to die. And if you need to cry, cry for your brother walking the street beside you. And when you need me, put your arms around anyone and give them what you need to give me. I want to leave you something better than words or sounds. Look for me in the people I've known or loved, and if you cannot give me away, at least let me live in your eyes and not in your mind. You can love me best by letting hands touch hands and by letting go of children that need to be free. Love doesn't die, people do. So when all that's left of me is love, give me away.
Thank you. Lori.
Thanks.
John, obviously you worked directly
Yeah,
alongside
yeah.
her.
I've known Liza for even before I started working here. My son John and Allison, grew up together, went to school together, graduated together. So I knew her, as Liza, the mom, and she loved her family, was very involved there. And then when we both were working here at Town Hall, I got the pleasure of knowing her, professionally, and saw, how dedicated and kind and intelligent and giving that she was. I guess one of my favorite memories of her is how nervous she always would come up here, even though she'd always kill it. She'd always be afraid to come up here and talk, but she would always do it very well. She'll be missed, and Godspeed.
Thank you, John. Yeah, myself as well. I knew John. I knew Liza before she took the position as a clerk. she used to be the van driver at the Council on Aging when it was at the McKinley School. And both of my daughters went to Chipmunks there. And my mother-in-law worked in the office at the Council on Aging with Liza. So it was a daily ritual where we would go by to say hello to their grandmother. But while they were saying hello to her, Liza was always there laughing, telling stories, and teasing the kids. And it got to a point where, and I never tell my mother-in-law this, but they look forward to seeing Liza more than her. Because Liza's, her smile, her laugh, and just the way she interacted with people was just so great and so profound. And one of the things I think about Liza is she was the van driver at the time for the Council on Aging, but she was always so much more than that, and she always knew that she was so much more than that. It was capable of doing so much more. And she made it a real goal of hers to rise up within the structure of town municipal workforce. And she took the third chair in the office, and then she took the second chair. Donna appointed her as her assistant clerk, and then at the risk of sounding condescending, I was always very proud of Liza for the journey that she took and her determination to be more than the van driver. And I think she felt like she was pigeonholed for a while as that, and she proved a lot of people wrong, that she was more than that, and she was an exceptional clerk. Upon hearing of her passing, I called Donna Shortall, a former colleague up here, and obviously Donna was devastated. She was very close to Liza. She was talking to her still pretty much on a daily basis, and it's really hit her hard. So if anybody sees Donna out there, she's, say a good word for her. She's really heartbroken over this. I'm not usually one to prepare any kind of statements, but I figured that this was kind of one of those moments. So, Liza was more than a dedicated public servant. She was a steady, trusted presence in Town Hall and a true professional who cared deeply about this community. She served Rockland with integrity, patience, and an unwavering commitment to do things the right way. Whether it was elections, vital records keeping, or helping residents register their dogs or navigate town government, Liza brought knowledge and fairness and kindness to everything she did. Her loss is felt profoundly by her colleagues, by this board, by the many residents she's helped over the years. We're grateful for her service, her friendship, and the lasting impact she made to our town. On behalf of Rockland, we extend our deepest condolences to Liza's family and loved ones. She'll be greatly missed and always remembered. And with that, I ask everybody to just bow their heads for a moment of silence in memory of Liza Landy. Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda, minutes from 1/6/2026. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion.
I have a motion.
Second.
Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
That's unanimous. Thank you. All right, next, under new business, CDBG project cap waiver request. Doug?
Thanks, Mike. This is a fairly common request we have these days with the Community Development Block Grant Program. They're doing a housing rehab for some very critical work in a low-income property. The federal rules require that when the cost is going to exceed the federal cap, that we need to get select board approval. And this has just become more and more common with the increase in construction costs. Out of respect for privacy of the homeowners, we don't publicly list on the agenda their address, but you have all the details in your packet. And you can see the memo from Wayne Dara from our CDBG consultant. So with that, I recommend you approve the waiver request on this project.
We'll entertain a motion to approve the project cap waiver request.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor? That's unanimous.
Yep.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, CDBG Slum and Blight inventory. Bill?
Yep, so I'm going to hand this off to Courtney. What she's going to basically give to you tonight is just a brief overview, kind of as a heads up for what's going to be coming in more depth at your upcoming meeting. But with that, I'll turn it over to Courtney.
Good evening.
Welcome.
As Doug mentioned, I'm just going to give you all a quick heads up in advance of the first select board meeting in February. The CDBG is managed by Community Opportunities Group here at Town Hall, and they, about 10 years ago, went through this same exercise to designate this same exact area as with a Slum and Blight designation. In your packet is a memo that Wayne Dara drafted to kind of give everybody an overview of what that means, but for in the interest of kind of streamlining it, I just thought I would highlight a few things. So as I mentioned, CDBG is managed by Community Opportunities Group. They and the town have been working with a consultant, R&D Consultants, to update the Slum and Blight inventory. You may have seen them around town taking some photos along the Union Street corridor, basically from North Ave to just past East-West Water Street. It's just this Union Street corridor and just the commercial properties that are directly abutting Union Street. I think the main thing that I want to hit home is that, you know, the designation can often be a little bit misunderstood, but ultimately it's a federal designation. It's a definition that allows the town to access additional funds to do upgrades necessary along these kind of key identified corridors. And so there's a threshold of 25%, so 25% of the properties have to be deemed, you know, fair or poor condition. This corridor, you'll hear this in February, but this corridor meets that threshold. In the past, the Slum and Blight designation allowed Rockland to access additional funds to do upgrades along, to the sidewalks, updates to the facades along Union Street. So it's really just another tool for us to use to do some upgrades along that corridor that ultimately will be coming to the board to ask for you to vote to allow this designation down here. And so I just want to give you all kind of a quick preview of that ahead of the R&D presentation. R&D is going to go through kind of an overview of the projects, some of their highlights. They look at things like the physical parcels and the buildings, but also the infrastructure in the buildings, so the water infrastructure, the sewer infrastructure, the roadway infrastructure, the sidewalks, all of the pieces of the corridor, and they do the analysis on all of the pieces. Each property has a sheet, and this is submitted to the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities. They ultimately will be the approver of this, but it will require you to vote on this in February. So I wanted to give you a quick highlight. I wanted to give you the memo from Wayne to see if there are any additional questions that you all might have. But generally, this is, it's not, that designation doesn't like devalue properties in that area. It doesn't have an impact in that way. It's simply a definition that is set by the federal government that we qualify for and that allows us to unlock some investment funding from the federal level. So does anybody have any questions on that or any clarifications I can make?
Any questions? Are we good?
A statement that dovetails into what I said last meeting. Appreciate you pursuing this, finding additional funds for our community. Every little bit helps. Thank you.
Absolutely. And then I guess just the final point on that, this is probably not the last time that you all are going to hear about kind of these efforts in the, we call it the problem properties or the blighted properties. We have an internal working group here in Town Hall of Inspectional Services and other departments that touch these types of issues where we have, you know, properties that are not code compliant or pose a safety risk. And so we have been working on this for a while now, but working on some additional tools for the toolkit is what we call it. So we'll be talking more about that in the spring, but I just felt like I would mention that tonight too, so you'll kind of see there's a little bit of a theme where we have a little bit of a focus on that. And so this is just another tool in our toolkit to do some of the necessary improvements that we need on some of these properties. So
Thank you, Courtney.
Sure.
Appreciate your time.
I'm just gonna stay real quick 'cause
Next
I'm
on the
nervous.
agenda, Hingham Street Corridor Improvement Project.
I'm gonna turn this one over to
Right over to
Courtney.
Courtney.
Maybe I'll just say as a very brief intro, in your packet is some info from the town website, which again, Courtney prepared, but you'll see the map on the first page of it. We're talking about Hingham Street from Route 3 all the way up to where Reservoir Park Drive meets Weymouth Street. We've been working on this for a number of years. Jen Constable helped work on a MassWorks grant for some of the preliminary design. But there's a lot involved here, and we could likely have some things at town meeting, and so with that, I'll turn it over to Courtney to give you the update.
So I'm gonna be relatively brief on this piece because there's still a lot of moving pieces here. But as Doug mentioned, we got some design funding from the MassWorks grant program back in, really, I think it was 2021 was the official award. We've had a couple of grant extensions due to kind of the moving parts of the various projects that are connected to this corridor improvement. So specifically, the Union Point, South Weymouth Naval Air Station development, that their plans for that development significantly impact how we design the roadway, and ultimately the reason that the town went forward for this MassWorks grant in the first place and was awarded this in the first place was because there was anticipated growth along this corridor, both in the North Rockland area that abuts the Hingham, but also in the Union Point Naval Air Station. So I think that, I guess just to take it back to that, that's originally why the town went forward and requested this design grant. And that was back in 2021. There's been obviously some, I don't want to call them delays, but some delays along the project with all the zoning changes and all of those things. So we have kind of been in alignment with that timing to some degree. So we're right around the 75% design phase right now. And we're anticipating having a public outreach meeting sometime in March to update you all with those preliminary designs. I'll highlight just a couple of key elements of the design upgrades. So there's some widening and resurfacing of Hingham Street, basically from Commerce Road to Reservoir Park Drive. There is the addition of some new sidewalks on the south side of Hingham Street to create some connectivity between the hotel area and the kind of Home Depot area down there. So there'll be some connectivity and walkability around there. There's going to be a little bit of realignment of some of the roadways. There's going to be a pretty large realignment at the intersection of Reservoir Park Drive and Hingham Street. That's the biggest update along the corridor, is there's going to be a pretty large realignment of that intersection. And there's also going to be some kind of key signalization improvements, drainage improvements along the way as well. As Doug indicated, this is a pretty complex project. There's been a lot of moving pieces of this. There will be some smaller land takings as part of this. No large land takings, but smaller land takings to allow for some of those drainage improvements, to allow for some of that widening. We have already talked to a couple of the most impacted property owners about what that is going to look like for them. We anticipate we'll probably be speaking with a few additional property owners about some smaller impacts. And then, as I indicated, we'll be talking with the larger community and you all maybe later in March about with more of a finalized plan for the redesign. One thing that I want to mention is that this has required a pretty good amount of coordination as of late, as of this summer. You know, we had originally this project was designed out at around $25 million, the corridor, but we had a lot of conversations with some of our state contacts and our agency partners, and that's not a very realistic number to go to the state and ask for construction funding with. So we have pared back the design a bit, prioritized some key improvements. The widening is a huge piece. The realignment of the intersection is a huge piece. So we're excited to present some of those here in the spring. And I think that the ultimate goal would be for us to do potentially start construction as early as next year on some of those improvements. Another key element of this is that we did some readjustment. We have potentially identified a chunk of funding that's part of a larger package of funding that would allow us to unlock this first phase of construction. And so we're trying to align all of those things, working with our contacts at MassWorks and with our regional partners and with the key stakeholders along the corridor to make sure that we're communicating about impacts. We'll be sure to be talking about construction and what that means, and we'll be sure to be communicating about that as things roll out. But I want to try and start talking about it a little bit more now and until it's going, so that it doesn't come as a surprise. I mean, we've kind of been talking about this intermittently over the past few years, and I think because of some of the delays in the project, there was people kind of wondering, when is this going to happen? But I think we're getting there, and I think it's probably going to be happening in the next year or so that we actually start construction. So I wanted to just give everybody a quick update, remind everybody it's happening, that we're going to be having a public outreach meeting soon in March once we have a more finalized design. We're working with, as Doug mentioned, we're working potentially on preparing some things for the Maytown meeting warrant in relation to the takings, and working with an appraiser and our land use council to make sure that we have all of those things in alignment ahead of the meeting if possible. So more to come on that, but just a reminder that it's out there, it's moving forward, and we're excited to be able to present some of those design elements at an upcoming outreach meeting.
Thank you, Courtney. Any
Thank
questions? Okay. Thank you, Courtney. Appreciate it. Next on the agenda, town administrator performance review process. That's basically just to kind of just give a couple of dates here. So every year we got to do Doug's performance review evaluation. So what's going to happen? Probably, Doug, whatever you would think would be a good time for you to have your self-evaluation done.
Whenever you guys want it.
I mean, what do you think you need, 2 weeks from today?
Sure.
All right, so Doug will get his self-evaluation done within 2 weeks of today. He'll get it distributed to us as board members. And then I'm thinking maybe the second meeting in February, that we should try to have it turned in before that second meeting, so that the first meeting in March, we can have it consolidated by Attorney Clifford's office, and we can present a consolidated document in public. In the meantime, obviously you can reach out to Doug for any questions that you have in regards to different projects, things that you want to include in the review or not. You can reach out to Attorney Clifford's office. What we'll do is, the way it'll work is Doug will give a self-evaluation. We'll look at the self-evaluation. We'll write our reviews on that. Prior to turning in the formal evaluation to Attorney Clifford's office, each one of us will schedule some time to review it with Doug, go over with him personally our own evaluations of him. And then we'll turn it in by that second meeting in February. And then by the first meeting in March, hopefully Attorney Clifford's able to have a consolidated document, and then we'll read that in open session. All right, that sound good? Easy enough timeline? Everybody Anybody need more time, less time, anything good? All right.
good.
All right, and in the meantime, obviously, Doug wants to have a review, so, any questions that you have regarding projects, like, just reach out to Doug, or reach out to myself, or reach out to the county clerk. All right? All right, other new business not reasonably anticipated, Doug?
I have none.
Okay. Under old business, FY '27 budget, if necessary.
Yeah, the only item is just, I confirm that the governor's budget will be out on Wednesday, the 28th of January, same night as our finance committee, so that first meeting in February, I'll have a better sense of where things stand.
Okay, thank you. Other old business not reasonably anticipated? Okay, town administrator's report and correspondence, Doug.
Just 4 quick ones. First is just letting you know that, I think we alluded to this earlier, but we are actively working on a potential community compact grant to scan most of our paper files here in Town Hall. So it's even just applying for a grant like this is a large undertaking because we have to work with some vendors to get some rough estimates for what the volumes and costs would be before we can even fill out an intelligent application. But it's something we really do want to pursue, and we're actively working on that, so more to come. And I should have, I suppose, backed up and said really big picture for the community if they're wondering, well, why do we need to apply for a grant for something like this? The amount of paper involved and the amount of work involved, and not just scanning, but organizing all the files properly electronically could easily be a $250,000 project. So that's why we're trying to pursue a grant for this. Next, I just wanted to highlight that the final construction is underway right now to install the generator here at Town Hall. The generator has been out on the pad for quite a while, but the contractor was waiting for some additional equipment that's inside here in the garage. They have that equipment now. They've been here last week and this week, and I imagine within another week or two we'll be up and running. So that's good. Next, our periodic town newsletter should be coming out sometime next week, so be on the lookout for that. And then lastly, I'll be at the Mass Municipal Association Conference on Friday and Saturday at the end of this week, possibly with a few of you as well. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Select board comments?
Before we go into that, can I ask a question about these, the town administrator correspondence?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, brain's not working.
Where are the words, Steve?
I know, I'm usually so good with them. The scanning initiative, and it's just kind of occurred to me because I know the Historical Commission has done CPC funding for some scanning initiatives. I'm wondering, I don't know how far back you're looking to go, but anything that would be deemed historical could potentially qualify and help bolster any funds we were to get from the state. So something to consider.
Yep, great idea. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Select board comments. Comments and opinions expressed by individual members do not necessarily reflect the views of the select board, and the opinions and comments of only the individual member. Vice Chairman Childs, since you're all the way in Hawaii, I'll let you go first. You're on mute. Okay.
Aloha, everybody. Yeah, I just wanted to remind people that there is an Abington-Rockland Joint Waterworks public meeting on January 27th at 6 p.m. at the Rockland High School Lecture Hall. The developers for Union Point will be there to explain their plans for getting water to the base. So public comment is being taken for that, and it's pretty important to, that the water department, residents, the developers are all on the same page about these plans. So as soon as we can get shovels in the ground on the base, we start getting tax revenue for that, which we desperately need. So this is millions of tax revenue. So I encourage everybody to go to the high school auditorium lecture hall on Tuesday, January 27th, 2026 at 6 p.m. And that's it.
Thank you, Lori.
Thanks.
Select board member Needham.
Just reinforcing the importance of that meeting, and that's it for tonight.
Okay, thank you, Tiffany. Select board member Elwood.
Oh, I could go before Steve.
Yeah,
All right,
that was
thank you.
designed tonight, because he already gave me
All right, I was wondering about
a
that.
heads up
Okay.
on this.
All right, all I was gonna say is just remind people nomination papers are available. There's a bunch of positions, some still don't have anyone who's pulled for them, so if you're looking to get involved, please pull papers. If you have any questions about any of the positions, feel free to reach out to me and I will help you the best that I can. That's it.
Thank you, John. So for my comments, it's the exact same. You know, papers were available starting last week. The deadline, I believe, is February 18th to pull papers. Just as John said, if anybody has any questions or concerns about a specific department and what they do and the time commitments, I'd be willing to answer anybody's questions. And with that, I'll defer the rest of my time to Steve O'Donnell. Mr. O'Donnell.
Thank you. Did give Mike a heads up. Did prepare a statement tonight in honor of Martin Luther King Jr. Day. It was going to be a longer statement, got a bit lengthy, and so in the interest of time, I'm going to present a shortened version, although a little bit lengthy. And I'll post the full version on my social media later tonight for those interested. We are called to love our neighbor as ourselves. Yesterday was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day, a day of remembrance for one of our nation's heroes, a flawed man who fought ferociously for the rights of those our country deemed less than. He led a movement we call the Civil Rights Movement. While his movement focused on lifting up Black Americans to equal status of white Americans, we see parallels in this movement today. We watched our Supreme Court determine that ICE can detain a person for the color of their skin or their accent. We watched as those who stand up to the injustices of the current administration are beaten back and have their rights infringed. We remember Dr. King's speeches as powerful tools used to expose the injustices that Black and brown-skinned Americans continue to experience even after the Emancipation Proclamation was signed. Tools that rallied a nation to petition the government to make good on its founding document, the Declaration of Independence, which states, "We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed." In 1968, the people no longer consented to the oppression of our neighbors. In 2026, we are seeing a similar rise to action as our civil and constitutional rights are eroded. His messages ring true and are as applicable today as they were in 1968. The day before Dr. King was assassinated, he delivered one of his most quoted speeches. In his sermon titled, "I've Been to the Mountaintop," it was addressed to a group of striking sanitation workers in Memphis, Tennessee. In his opening, he states, "Something is happening in Memphis. Something is happening in our world." He talks about a Dickens-esque story where God offers him the ability to live in any age of human history. He talks about visiting the time of Exodus from Egypt, the philosophers of Mount Olympus, the height of the Roman Empire, the arts created during Renaissance, visiting Martin Luther. He speaks of watching Lincoln sign the Emancipation Proclamation, of watching FDR wrestle with the weight of the Great Depression, and hearing his famous words, "The only thing we have to fear is fear itself." Then he talks about wanting to visit the second half of the 20th century, his present day. The reason for wanting to live in his current time was as follows. "The world is all messed up. The nation is sick. Trouble is in the land, confusion all around. That's a strange statement, but I know, somehow, that only when it is dark enough can you see the stars. And I see God working in this period of the 20th century in a way that men in some strange way are responding. Something is happening in our world. The masses of people are rising up. And another reason I'm happy to live in this period is that we have been forced to a point where we're going to have to grapple with the problems that men have been trying to grapple with throughout history, but with demands that didn't force them to do it. Survival demands that we grapple with them. Men, for years now, have been talking about war and peace, but now no longer can they just talk about it. It is no longer a choice between violence and nonviolence in this world. It's nonviolence or non-existence. Dr. King and the Civil Rights Movement gained so much in their efforts for justice. But if those words don't echo today's environment, I don't know what does. He goes on to say, "And that's all this whole thing is about. We aren't engaged in any negative protest and any negative arguments with anybody. We are saying that we are determined to be men. We are determined to be people. We are saying that we are God's children and that we don't have to live like we are forced to live." Later he writes what is probably the most well-known quote of the speech. "All we say to America is, be true to what you said on paper. If I lived in China or even Russia or any totalitarian country, maybe I could understand the denial of basic First Amendment privileges, because they hadn't committed themselves to that over there. But somewhere I read the freedom of assembly. Somewhere I read the freedom of speech. Somewhere I read the freedom of press. Somewhere I read the greatness of America is the right to protest for right." He goes on to reflect of the parable of the Good Samaritan. During that story, the Samaritan is asked, why he helped the ailing man. And the Samaritan responds, "If I do not stop to help this man, what will happen to him?" This next part I'm going to paraphrase and replace sanitation workers with my neighbor to illustrate the parallels with today's America. That's the question before you tonight, not if I stop to help my neighbor, what will happen to all the hours that I usually spend in my office every day of every week? The question is not, if I stop to help this man in need, what will happen to me? If I do not stop to help my neighbor, what will happen to them? That's the question. I want to repeat that. The question is, if I do not stop to help my neighbor, what will happen to them? So many are concerned only with their own welfare and the welfare of their families. While it is noble to care for yourself and your family, we too are called to care for our fellow man. While immigration reform has been necessary for decades, we still have a need to enforce the laws. We also have a moral obligation to treat the process and the people with dignity and respect. We are bound to protect the civil rights of all people within the borders of this country. The Constitution and its amendments demand it. Demanding accountability is not an assault on law enforcement. The practice of law enforcement is necessary to ensure our rights are protected, including the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated. This right not only binds the government to protect from government overreach, it also serves as the purpose of law enforcement. It codifies our moral obligation to each other, law enforcement or otherwise. We are called to love our neighbor as ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn into executive session per Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining, highway, parks, clerical, police patrol, police superior, and fire. And then per Mass General Laws, Chapter 38, Section 21A7, review and approval of executive session minutes, 9/20/22, 2/7/23, 8/8/23, 4/2/24, 4/1/25, 11/18/25, and 1/6/26. Entertain a motion to enter into executive session.
Motion.
Second. Motion, I have a second. All those in favor, roll call. Lori?
Yep.
Tiffany?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
And myself. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.
Thank you.